experience the riveting saga of Yaa Asantewaa, the legendary Queen Mother whose unwavering courage and leadership sparked a rebellion against colonial oppression in the heart of Africa. Join us on a journey through history as we delve into the remarkable story of one woman's defiance and determination to protect her people's freedom and dignity. Through captivating animations and vivid storytelling, discover the rich cultural heritage of the Asante Kingdom and the enduring legacy of a true African hero. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of courage and resilience from around the world. In the heart of West Africa lies the mighty Asante Kingdom, a land of vibrant culture, rich traditions, and formidable power. Nestled among the dense forests and fertile plains, the Asante people thrived for centuries, building a kingdom that commanded respect and admiration across the region. At the center of Asante society stood the golden stool, a symbol of unity and sovereignty that held profound significance for the Asante people. Legend has it that the golden stool descended from the heavens and embodied the spirit of the Asante nation, connecting the past, present, and future in a sacred bond. Within this kingdom, in the village of Edweso, was born a child who would one day leave an indelible mark on Asante history. Her name was Yaa Asantewaa, a girl destined for greatness even from her earliest days. Yaa Asantewaa was born into the royal family of the Edweso tribe, her lineage tracing back to the legendary founders of the Asante Kingdom. From a young age, she displayed remarkable intelligence, strength of character, and a fierce sense of independence that set her apart from her peers. Growing up in the lush countryside of Edweso, Yaa Asantewaa was immersed in the traditions and customs of her people. She learned the ancient stories of Asante heroes and heroines who had defended their land from invaders and upheld the honor of their kingdom. As she matured, Yaa Asantewaa's natural leadership qualities became apparent to all who knew her. She was respected for her wisdom, admired for her courage, and loved for her compassion towards her fellow villagers. Despite her royal status, Yaa Asantewaa remained humble and grounded, never hesitating to lend a helping hand to those in need. She was known for her generosity and kindness, traits that endeared her to the people of Edweso and beyond. As Yaa Asantewaa reached adulthood, she became increasingly aware of the challenges facing her beloved kingdom. The winds of change were blowing across West Africa, as European powers sought to expand their empires and exert control over the continent. In the midst of these tumultuous times, the Asante Kingdom stood as a beacon of strength and resilience, fiercely guarding its independence against external threats. But the looming shadow of colonialism cast a dark cloud over the horizon, threatening to engulf the Asante people in its grasp. For Yaa Asantewaa, the protection of her homeland and the preservation of its cherished traditions became a calling that she could not ignore. Little did she know that her journey would lead her to become a central figure in one of the most pivotal chapters in Asante history, forever etching her name into the annals of legend. In the verdant village of Edweso, nestled amidst the rolling hills of the Asante Kingdom, Yaa Asantewaa came into the world with the promise of greatness woven into the fabric of her being. Born into the royal lineage of the Edweso tribe, she was the daughter of a respected chief, destined to inherit a legacy of honor and leadership. Yaa Asantewa's childhood was imbued with the sights and sounds of traditional Asante life. From the vibrant festivals that echoed through the streets to the solemn rituals that honored the spirits of the ancestors, she drank deeply from the wellspring of her people's culture, learning the customs and traditions that defined their way of life. As the youngest daughter in a family of noble birth, Yaa Asantewaa was afforded every privilege and advantage that her station could provide. Yet, she was not content to simply bask in the comforts of her royal status. From an early age, she displayed an insatiable curiosity and a thirst for knowledge that set her apart from her siblings. Under the tutelage of the village elders, Yaa Asantewaa learned the ancient stories and legends of the Asante people, soaking in the wisdom of generations past. She listened intently as the griots wove tales of bravery and heroism, of wars won and lost, of kings and queens who had shaped the destiny of their kingdom with their deeds. But it was not only the tales of valor and conquest that captured Yaa Asantewaa's imagination. She was equally fascinated by the stories of the everyday people who toiled in the fields and markets, whose lives were woven into the very fabric of Asante society. She saw in their struggles and triumphs the true essence of her people, and she vowed to honor their legacy in all that she did. As Yaa Asantewaa matured into womanhood, her natural leadership qualities began to blossom, drawing the admiration and respect of those around her. She was known for her quick wit and sharp intellect, her unwavering sense of justice, and her willingness to speak truth to power. But it was her boundless compassion and empathy that truly set her apart. Yaa Asantewaa was beloved by the people of Edweso for her kindness and generosity, always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. Whether it was providing food and shelter to the homeless or mediating disputes between rival factions, she approached every challenge with a spirit of grace and humility. In the tranquil embrace of her village, Yaa Asantewaa's destiny seemed assured, her path laid out before her like the winding rivers that crisscrossed the countryside. Little did she know that the winds of change were stirring on the horizon, heralding a new era of upheaval and uncertainty that would test the very foundations of the Asante kingdom. And in the crucible of destiny, Yaa Asantewaa would emerge as a beacon of hope and resilience, her name echoing down through the ages as a symbol of courage and defiance in the face of adversity. As Yaa Asantewaa transitioned from adolescence to adulthood, her innate qualities of leadership and compassion continued to shine brightly within the village of Edweso. The whispers of her potential had spread far and wide, earning her the admiration and respect of both young and old alike. In the intricate tapestry of Asante society, the role of Queen Mother held a position of great significance. Charged with the responsibility of advising the chief and representing the interest of her people, the Queen Mother wielded considerable influence within the community. As fate would have it, the mantle of Queen Mother fell upon Yaa Asantewaa's shoulders sooner than anyone could have anticipated. Following the untimely passing of her mother, the previous Queen Mother, Yaa Asantewaa found herself thrust into a position of leadership for which she had been quietly preparing her entire life. At first, Yaa Asantewaa hesitated to accept the weighty responsibilities that accompanied her new title. She was acutely aware of the challenges and expectations that awaited her, and she wondered whether she possessed the wisdom and strength to guide her people through the trials that lay ahead. But in the end, it was her deep love for her homeland and her unwavering commitment to the well-being of her people that compelled Yaa Asantewaa to step forward and assume the role of Queen Mother. With humility and grace, she accepted the sacred duty entrusted to her, vowing to honor the legacy of her ancestors and to uphold the traditions of her people with unwavering resolve. From that moment forward, Yaa Asantewaa dedicated herself wholeheartedly to the service of her community. She presided over council meetings and tribal gatherings with wisdom and discernment, offering sage counsel to her fellow leaders and advocating tirelessly for the needs of the villagers. But Yaa Asantewaa's influence extended far beyond the boundaries of Edweso. Her reputation as a fair and just leader spread like wildfire throughout the Asante kingdom, earning her the respect and admiration of neighboring tribes and distant allies alike. Under her guidance, the village of Edweso flourished, its fields yielding bountiful harvests, its people united in purpose and solidarity. And though the shadows of uncertainty loomed on the horizon, Yaa Asantewaa stood as a beacon of hope and strength, her unwavering spirit serving as a source of inspiration to all who knew her. In the years that followed, Yaa Asantewaa would face challenges and tribulations that tested her courage and resilience to the very core. But through it all, she would remain steadfast in her commitment to her people and to the noble ideals for which she stood, earning her a place of honor in the annals of Asante history that would never be forgotten. In the late 19th century, the winds of change swept across West Africa as European powers vied for control and dominance over the continent. Among these colonial powers, the British Empire cast its covetous gaze upon the rich and fertile lands of the Asante Kingdom, seeking to expand its influence and secure valuable resources for its burgeoning empire. The Asante Kingdom, with its vast wealth in gold and natural resources, presented an enticing prize for the British colonial administrators. Situated in what is now modern-day Ghana, the Asante people had long established themselves as formidable warriors and skilled traders, commanding respect and admiration from neighboring tribes and foreign traders alike. But to the British, the Asante Kingdom represented more than just a lucrative trading partner. It was a strategic foothold in their quest for imperial supremacy. Under the guise of promoting civilization and progress, British colonial officials began to encroach upon Asante territory, establishing trading posts and military outposts with the aim of asserting their authority over the indigenous population. The arrival of British colonial administrators sparked tensions and resentment among the Asante people, who viewed the newcomers with suspicion and distrust. Accustomed to governing themselves according to their own customs and traditions, they bristled at the imposition of foreign rule and the erosion of their autonomy. At the heart of the growing discord between the Asante and the British lay the question of the golden stool, the sacred symbol of Asante unity and sovereignty. For centuries, the golden stool had served as the spiritual and political foundation of the Asante kingdom, embodying the collective identity and aspirations of its people. Sensing an opportunity to exert their authority, the British colonial administrators demanded that the Asante king, Prempeh I, surrender the golden stool to their custody, a brazen affront to the dignity and pride of the Asante people. But to the astonishment of the British, the Asante king and his councillors refused to comply, defiantly proclaiming that the golden stool was a symbol of divine mandate that could never be surrendered to foreign hands. As tensions escalated between the Asante and the British, the stage was set for a confrontation that would alter the course of history. In the coming months, the fate of the Asante kingdom would hang in the balance as the two sides prepared to clash in a struggle for supremacy that would test the limits of courage, resilience, and determination. And at the center of it all stood Yaa Asantewaa, the Queen Mother of Edweso, whose leadership and courage would inspire her people to rise up against the forces of colonial oppression and fight for their freedom and independence. In the heart of the Asante kingdom, amidst the bustling markets and vibrant villages, a sense of unease gripped the land as the British colonial administrators' demand for the golden stool reverberated throughout the region. The sacred symbol of Asante unity and sovereignty, the golden stool held a revered place in the hearts and minds of the Asante people, embodying their collective identity and aspirations. The audacious demand by the British for the golden stool sent shockwaves through the kingdom, igniting a firestorm of anger and indignation among the Asante populace. To surrender the golden stool to foreign hands was unthinkable, an act of sacrilege that struck at the very heart of Asante culture and tradition. Word of the British ultimatum spread like wildfire, reaching the farthest corners of the kingdom and stirring a groundswell of resistance among the Asante people. From the bustling markets of Kumasi to the remote villages nestled in the verdant countryside, a sense of defiance and determination took hold as the people vowed to protect the sanctity of the golden stool at all costs. At the forefront of this growing resistance stood Yaa Asantewaa, the Queen Mother of Edweso, whose fierce spirit and unwavering resolve galvanized her people to stand united against the encroaching tide of colonial oppression. With passion and conviction, she rallied her fellow Asante leaders, urging them to set aside their differences and join forces in defense of their homeland. In impassioned speeches that echoed across the kingdom, Yaa Asantewaa denounced the British demand for the golden stool as an act of aggression and disrespect. With words that stirred the heart of all who heard them, she called upon her people to rise up in defiance of colonial rule and to reclaim their birthright as proud sons and daughters of the Asante kingdom. But as tensions mounted and the threat of violence loomed on the horizon, the Asante leaders found themselves faced with a daunting choice: to submit to the will of the British and surrender the golden stool, or to stand firm in defense of their ancestral heritage and face the consequences of defiance. For Yaa Asantewaa and her fellow leaders, there could be no question of compromise. To surrender the golden stool would be to surrender the very soul of the Asante kingdom, to relinquish their dignity, their pride, and their right to self-determination. And so, with unwavering resolve, they made the fateful decision to defy the British demand and to prepare for whatever trials lay ahead. As the drums of war began to beat across the kingdom, the stage was set for a showdown that would test the courage and resilience of the Asante people as never before. And at the heart of it all stood Yaa Asantewaa, a beacon of hope and inspiration whose unwavering faith in the righteousness of their cause would guide her people through the darkest days that lay ahead. As tensions between the Asante people and the British colonial administrators reached a boiling point, Yaa Asantewaa, the Queen Mother of Edweso, emerged as a towering figure of courage and leadership. With the fate of the kingdom hanging in the balance, she seized upon the moment to rally her people to action, delivering a stirring call to arms that would echo through the annals of history. Gathering together the leaders of the surrounding villages, Yaa Asantewaa stood before them with a fire burning in her eyes and a passion blazing in her heart. With eloquence and conviction, she spoke of the sacred duty that they all shared, to defend their homeland against the encroachment of foreign invaders and to preserve the dignity and sovereignty of the Asante kingdom. In words that stirred the souls of all who heard them, Yaa Asantewaa reminded her fellow leaders of the rich legacy of resistance that defined their people's history. From the legendary exploits of their ancestors to the heroic deeds of past kings and queens, the Asante had always stood firm in the face of adversity, united in their determination to protect their way of life at any cost. But now, she declared, the time had come for them to write a new chapter in the annals of Asante history, a chapter of defiance and courage, of unity and strength. With a resounding voice that carried across the land, she called upon her people to take up arms against the forces of colonial oppression, to stand shoulder to shoulder in defense of their homeland, and to fight with all their might to ensure that the golden stool remained firmly in Asante hands. Her words struck a chord deep within the hearts of her fellow leaders, inspiring them to cast aside their doubts and fears and to embrace the noble cause for which they had been called. With a renewed sense of purpose and determination, they pledged their unwavering support to Yaa Asantewaa and the cause of Asante freedom, vowing to stand firm in the face of whatever trials lay ahead. And so, buoyed by the strength of their convictions and the righteousness of their cause, Yaa Asantewaa and her fellow leaders embarked upon a journey that would test the limits of their courage and resilience. But with the spirit of their ancestors guiding their steps and the hope of future generations lighting their way, they marched forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on the path to freedom. With tensions escalating between the Asante people and the British colonial forces, the simmering discontent that had long smoldered beneath the surface finally erupted into open conflict. The Asante, galvanized by the impassioned call to arms issued by Yaa Asantewaa and other leaders, rose up in defiance against the encroaching tide of colonial oppression. In villages and towns across the kingdom, Asante warriors rallied to the cause, brandishing spears and shields, their faces painted with the colors of war. From the bustling markets of Kumasi to the remote hamlets nestled in the verdant countryside, the call to defend their homeland rang out loud and clear, inspiring all who heard it to take up arms in defense of their ancestral heritage. The British, taken aback by the ferocity of the Asante resistance, scrambled to mobilize their forces and quell the uprising before it could spread further. But the Asante, fueled by a burning desire for freedom and fueled by the righteous indignation of their cause, proved to be formidable opponents, skilled in the art of warfare and fiercely committed to their struggle for independence. In the days and weeks that followed, skirmishes and battles erupted across the kingdom as Asante warriors clashed with British troops in a series of bloody confrontations. From the dense forest of the interior to the open plains of the savannah, the echoes of musket fire and the clash of steel filled the air, signaling the intensity of the struggle that raged between the two sides. For Yaa Asantewaa and her fellow leaders, the outbreak of conflict brought with it both triumph and tragedy. On the one hand, they reveled in the courage and resilience of their people, who fought with unmatched bravery and determination against overwhelming odds. But on the other hand, they mourned the loss of life and the suffering that inevitably accompanied the ravages of war. Yet through it all, Yaa Asantewaa remained steadfast in her resolve, her unwavering faith in the righteousness of their cause serving as a beacon of hope and inspiration to all who fought by her side. With every victory won and every setback overcome, she reminded her people of the sacred duty that they bore to defend their homeland and to preserve the dignity and sovereignty of the Asante kingdom at any cost. As the conflict raged on, the fate of the Asante kingdom hung in the balance, its destiny shaped by the courage and determination of its people and the unwavering leadership of figures like Yaa Asantewaa, whose legacy would endure long after the last echoes of battle had faded into the mist of history. In the midst of the escalating conflict between the Asante people and the British colonial forces, Yaa Asantewaa emerged as a beacon of leadership and courage, guiding her people through the tumultuous trials that lay ahead with unwavering resolve. With the fate of the Asante kingdom hanging in the balance, Yaa Asantewaa took on the mantle of leadership with a sense of purpose and determination that inspired all who followed her. As Queen Mother of Edweso, she wielded considerable influence among her people, her words carrying weight and authority in times of crisis. From her humble abode in the village of Edweso, Yaa Asantewaa coordinated the efforts of the Asante resistance, rallying her fellow leaders and warriors to stand firm in the face of the encroaching tide of colonial oppression. With wisdom and foresight, she devised strategies to outmaneuver the British forces and protect the interests of her people. But it was not only on the battlefield that Yaa Asantewaa demonstrated her leadership prowess. In the council chambers and tribal gatherings, she presided with grace and dignity, offering sage counsel and guidance to her fellow leaders as they navigated the complexities of war and diplomacy. Time and again, Yaa Asantewaa proved herself to be a master tactician, outwitting her adversaries with cunning and guile. She leveraged her deep knowledge of Asante customs and traditions to unite her people behind a common cause, forging alliances and coalitions that strengthened the resolve of the Asante resistance. But perhaps most importantly, Yaa Asantewaa led by example, demonstrating to her people the true meaning of courage and sacrifice. Despite the dangers that surrounded her, she refused to back down or compromise her principles, standing firm in defense of her homeland and the cherished ideals for which it stood. As the conflict dragged on, Yaa Asantewaa's leadership became a source of inspiration and strength for all who fought alongside her. Her unwavering determination and unyielding spirit served as a beacon of hope in the darkest of times, reminding her people that victory was not only possible but inevitable if they remained steadfast in their convictions. And so, under Yaa Asantewa's guidance, the Asante people pressed forward with renewed vigor and determination, their hearts filled with the resolve to defy the forces of colonial oppression and secure their freedom and independence at any cost. For as long as Yaa Asantewaa stood at their side, leading them with wisdom and courage, they knew that they would never falter in their quest to defend their homeland and preserve the dignity and sovereignty of the Asante kingdom. As the conflict between the Asante people and the British colonial forces intensified, the bustling city of Kumasi, capital of the Asante kingdom, found itself at the epicenter of the struggle. Surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills, Kumasi stood as a symbol of Asante resilience and defiance, its streets echoing with the sounds of war as the two sides clashed in a battle for supremacy. The British, determined to crush the Asante resistance and assert their dominance over the region, laid siege to Kumasi, surrounding the city with their formidable military forces and cutting off its lines of communication and supply. But the Asante, led by the indomitable spirit of figures like Yaa Asantewaa, refused to surrender without a fight, vowing to defend their capital to the last breath. For weeks on end, Kumasi endured the relentless onslaught of the British siege, its inhabitants braving hunger, thirst, and exhaustion as they stood firm in defense of their homeland. From the towering walls of the city's fortifications to the narrow alleyways of its bustling markets, every street and square became a battleground, where the fate of the kingdom hung in the balance. Amidst the chaos and carnage of war, Yaa Asantewaa emerged as a guiding light for her people, her unwavering leadership and courage inspiring them to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. With determination and resolve, she coordinated the efforts of the Asante defenders, marshalling their resources and bolstering their morale as they stood united against the forces of colonial oppression. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the strain of the siege began to take its toll on Kumasi and its inhabitants. Food grew scarce, water became scarce, and disease spread like wildfire through the crowded streets and cramped quarters of the city. Yet still, the Asante people refused to yield, their spirits unbroken as they continued to resist the British onslaught with every fiber of their being. In the end, it was not the might of the British military machine that broke the siege of Kumasi, but the unwavering determination and resilience of the Asante people. With their backs against the wall and their strength all but exhausted, they found within themselves the courage to defy their oppressors one final time, driving back the British forces and breaking the siege that had threatened to crush their spirits and their dreams. And as the sun rose once more over the battered city of Kumasi, its streets strewn with the wreckage of war, the people of the Asante kingdom stood tall and proud, their heads held high in defiance of those who sought to subjugate them. For in the crucible of conflict, they had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, a people united in purpose and resolved to defend their homeland and their way of life at any cost. As the conflict between the Asante people and the British colonial forces raged on, Yaa Asantewaa, the valiant Queen Mother of Edweso, found herself at the forefront of the struggle, leading her people with unwavering courage and determination. But despite their heroic efforts, the tide of battle began to turn against the Asante, as the overwhelming might of the British military machine threatened to crush their resistance once and for all. In a fateful turn of events, Yaa Asantewaa and a band of loyal followers found themselves surrounded by British troops during a fierce skirmish on the outskirts of Kumasi, the capital of the Asante Kingdom. Despite their valiant efforts to hold their ground, they were ultimately overwhelmed by the sheer numbers and firepower of the enemy, and Yaa Asantewaa was captured and taken prisoner by the British. Forced to witness the devastation wrought upon her homeland by the invading forces, Yaa Asantewaa refused to yield to despair, her spirit unbroken even in the face of captivity. With dignity and grace, she bore the indignities heaped upon her by her captors, refusing to betray the principles for which she had fought so valiantly. But the British, recognizing the threat that Yaa Asantewaa posed to their authority, sought to neutralize her influence once and for all. In a cruel twist of fate, they ordered her to be exiled from her beloved homeland and transported to the distant shores of the Seychelles Islands, a remote outpost in the Indian Ocean where she would be isolated from her people and her cause. Despite the hardships of exile, Yaa Asantewaa remained resolute in her convictions, drawing strength from the memory of her homeland and the enduring spirit of her people. Alone in a foreign land, she continued to inspire hope and courage among her fellow exiles, reminding them of the noble ideals for which they had sacrificed so much. But even in exile, Yaa Asantewaa's influence could not be extinguished. Her legend spread far and wide, inspiring future generations of Asante leaders and activists to carry on the fight for freedom and independence. And though she may have been separated from her homeland by thousands of miles, her spirit remained indomitable, a beacon of hope and inspiration to all who heard her name. In the years that followed, Yaa Asantewaa's memory would be enshrined in the annals of Asante history, her legacy enduring as a testament to the courage, resilience, and unwavering determination of the Asante people in their quest for freedom and justice. And though she may have been forced to endure the hardships of exile, her spirit would forever remain free, soaring high above the windswept shores of the Seychelles Islands, a symbol of defiance and resistance against the forces of tyranny and oppression. Following the capture and exile of Yaa Asantewaa, the Asante people found themselves at a crossroads, their beloved Queen Mother torn from their midst and their homeland ravaged by the forces of British colonialism. Yet even in the face of adversity, they refused to abandon the fight for freedom and independence, drawing strength from the legacy of courage and resilience left behind by Yaa Asantewaa and other fearless leaders. With Yaa Asantewaa's indomitable spirit serving as a guiding light, the Asante people continue to resist the oppressive rule of the British colonial administrators with unwavering determination. From the bustling markets of Kumasi to the remote villages nestled in the verdant countryside, the call to defiance echoed far and wide, inspiring all who heard it to rise up against the forces of tyranny and oppression. In the absence of their beloved Queen Mother, new leaders emerged to take up the mantle of resistance, their voices ringing out with passion and conviction as they rallied their fellow Asante to the cause. Drawing upon the lessons learned from Yaa Asantewaa and other visionary leaders, they devised strategies to outmaneuver the British forces and undermine their authority at every turn. But the road to freedom was fraught with peril, and the Asante people faced countless challenges and setbacks in their quest to reclaim their homeland from the grip of colonialism. Despite their best efforts, the British remained a formidable adversary, their superior military might and vast resources posing a constant threat to the aspirations of the Asante people. Yet even in the darkest of times, the flame of resistance burned bright within the hearts of the Asante, fueling their determination to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. With every act of defiance and every sacrifice made in the name of freedom, they reaffirmed their commitment to the noble ideals for which they had fought so valiantly. And though the struggle for independence would be long and arduous, the Asante people refused to lose hope, drawing strength from the memory of Yaa Asantewaa and the countless others who had given their lives in the fight for justice and equality. For as long as their spirit remained unbroken and their resolve unwavering, they knew that victory would eventually be theirs, and that the legacy of courage and resilience left behind by Yaa Asantewaa would endure for generations to come. In the years that followed the capture and exile of Yaa Asantewaa, the Asante people continued their tireless struggle against British colonial rule, refusing to yield to the forces of oppression and tyranny. Despite facing countless hardships and setbacks, they remained steadfast in their commitment to reclaiming their homeland and restoring the dignity and sovereignty of the Asante kingdom. As the 20th century dawned, a wave of anti-colonial sentiment swept across the African continent, fueling aspirations for independence and self-determination among oppressed peoples. The Asante people, inspired by the spirit of resistance that had been kindled by Yaa Asantewaa and other visionary leaders, seized upon this momentum to renew their efforts to break free from the shackles of colonialism. Led by a new generation of bold and determined leaders, the Asante people intensified their campaign for independence, organizing protests, strikes, and demonstrations to demand an end to British rule. With each passing day, their voices grew louder and their resolve stronger, as they refused to be silenced or intimidated by the oppressive tactics of their colonial overlords. But it was not only on the streets and in the halls of power that the struggle for independence was waged. In villages and towns across the Asante kingdom, ordinary men and women joined together in solidarity, building networks of support and resistance that stretched from the bustling markets of Kumasi to the remote hamlets of the countryside. With unity and determination as their weapons, the Asante people waged a relentless campaign against the forces of colonialism, chipping away at the foundations of British authority until they could no longer withstand the pressure. And finally, after decades of struggle and sacrifice, their efforts bore fruit as the British colonial administrators were forced to concede defeat and grant the Asante people their long-awaited independence. On a historic day that would be forever etched into the annals of Asante history, the Asante kingdom reclaimed its sovereignty and took its rightful place among the community of nations. As the flag of the newly independent Asante kingdom was raised high above the capital city of Kumasi, tears of joy and triumph flowed freely among the people, who celebrated the dawn of a new era of freedom and self-determination. And though Yaa Asantewaa herself had long since passed into legend, her spirit lived on in the hearts and minds of her people, who honored her memory as a symbol of courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. For it was her indomitable spirit that had inspired a generation to rise up against the forces of oppression and tyranny, and it was her legacy that had paved the way for the triumph of independence that had finally been achieved. In the aftermath of achieving independence, the legacy of Yaa Asantewaa, the courageous Queen Mother of Edweso, continued to resonate throughout the Asante Kingdom and beyond. Her unwavering determination, indomitable spirit, and relentless pursuit of justice had left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of her people, inspiring future generations to uphold the ideals for which she had fought so valiantly. As the Asante Kingdom embarked on the path of nation-building and development, the memory of Yaa Asantewaa served as a guiding light, reminding her people of the sacrifices that had been made in the struggle for independence and the principles that had guided their quest for freedom. Her image adorned public squares and government buildings, her name echoed in the speeches of politicians and leaders, and her spirit lived on in the hearts of all who cherished the values of courage, resilience, and solidarity. But Yaa Asantewaa's legacy extended far beyond the borders of the Asante Kingdom, transcending time and space to inspire oppressed peoples around the world. Her courageous stand against colonial oppression had struck a chord with all who yearned for freedom and justice, serving as a beacon of hope and inspiration for countless individuals and movements fighting for liberation. In the decades that followed, Yaa Asantewaa's story would be celebrated in books, films, and works of art, ensuring that her memory would endure for generations to come. Her name became synonymous with resistance and defiance, her legacy a testament to the power of ordinary people to effect extraordinary change in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. But perhaps the greatest legacy of Yaa Asantewaa lay in the hearts and minds of the Asante people themselves. For they knew that as long as they remained true to the principles for which she had fought and sacrificed, her spirit would live on in their struggle for a better future, a future where justice, equality, and dignity reign supreme, and where the spirit of Yaa Asantewaa continued to inspire hope and courage in the hearts of all who dared to dream of a brighter tomorrow. In the years following the attainment of independence, the legacy of Yaa Asantewaa continued to exert a profound influence on the Asante people and their journey toward progress and prosperity. Her courage, resilience, and unwavering commitment to the cause of freedom remained an enduring source of inspiration, guiding her people through the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. As the newly independent Asante Kingdom sought to build a future that honored the sacrifices of those who had come before, the memory of Yaa Asantewaa served as a guiding light, reminding her people of the values and principles that had guided their struggle for independence. Her image graced public monuments and memorials, her name echoed in the speeches of leaders and activists, and her spirit lived on in the hearts of all who cherished the ideals of justice, equality, and dignity. But Yaa Asantewaa's influence extended far beyond the borders of the Asante Kingdom, resonating with oppressed peoples around the world who drew inspiration from her courageous stand against colonial oppression. Her story became a symbol of resistance and defiance, a testament to the power of ordinary individuals to effect extraordinary change in the face of adversity. In the decades that followed, Yaa Asantewa's story would be celebrated in books, films, and works of art, ensuring that her memory would endure for generations to come. Her legacy became an integral part of the national identity of the Asante people, a source of pride and inspiration that transcended time and space. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of Yaa Asantewaa lay in the hearts and minds of the Asante people themselves. For they knew that as long as they remained true to the principles for which she had fought and sacrificed, her spirit would live on in their struggle for a better future, a future where justice, equality, and dignity reigned supreme, and where the spirit of Yaa Asantewaa continued to inspire hope and courage in the hearts of all who dared to dream of a brighter tomorrow. As time marched forward, the legacy of Yaa Asantewaa continued to resonate powerfully within the Asante kingdom and beyond. Her unwavering courage, indomitable spirit, and resolute leadership had left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of her people, shaping their identity and guiding their path toward progress and prosperity. In the years following independence, the Asante Kingdom underwent a period of rapid transformation and development, as the aspirations of its people for a brighter future were translated into tangible achievements. The memory of Yaa Asantewaa served as a constant reminder of the sacrifices that had been made in the struggle for freedom, inspiring the Asante people to build a society that honored the principles of justice, equality, and dignity for all. Her image adorned public spaces and government buildings, her name invoked in ceremonies and celebrations, as the Asante people paid homage to the fearless Queen Mother who had led them through the darkest days of colonial oppression. Monuments and memorials were erected in her honor, ensuring that her memory would endure for generations to come as a symbol of resilience and resistance. But Yaa Asantewaa's influence extended far beyond the borders of the Asante Kingdom, touching the hearts and minds of people around the world who drew inspiration from her courageous stand against injustice. Her story became a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples everywhere, a reminder that the power to effect change lay within the hands of those who dared to stand up and speak out against tyranny. In the decades that followed, Yaa Asantewaa's story would be immortalized in literature, art, and popular culture, ensuring that her legacy would continue to inspire future generations to strive for a better world. Her spirit lived on in the hearts of all who cherished the values of freedom, justice, and equality, serving as a guiding light for those who sought to follow in her footsteps. And so, as the sun set on another day in the Asante Kingdom, the memory of Yaa Asantewaa burned bright in the hearts of her people, a reminder of the power of one woman's courage to change the course of history and shape the destiny of a nation. In the decades following the attainment of independence in the Asante Kingdom, the legacy of Yaa Asantewaa transcended geographical boundaries, leaving an indelible mark on the global stage. Her remarkable story of courage, resilience, and unwavering leadership resonated with oppressed peoples around the world, inspiring movements for justice, equality, and freedom. As news of Yaa Asantewaa's defiance against British colonial oppression spread beyond the shores of Africa, it ignited a spark of hope among those who yearned to break free from the chains of tyranny. From the shores of the Caribbean to the mountains of Asia, her name became synonymous with resistance and defiance, her story celebrated as a symbol of the power of ordinary individuals to effect extraordinary change. In the Caribbean, where enslaved peoples had long struggled against the brutality of colonial rule, Yaa Asantewa's story struck a chord with those who dared to dream of liberation. Her courageous stand against oppression served as a rallying cry for abolitionists and freedom fighters, who drew inspiration from her example as they fought to overthrow the shackles of slavery and build a future of dignity and equality for all. In Asia, where colonial powers had imposed their will upon indigenous peoples for centuries, Yaa Asantewa's story inspired a new generation of leaders to rise up against foreign domination and assert their right to self-determination. From India to Indonesia, from Vietnam to the Philippines, her name became a symbol of resistance against colonialism and imperialism, fueling movements for independence that would eventually shake the foundations of empires. But perhaps nowhere was Yaa Asantewa's influence felt more keenly than in the hearts and minds of African diaspora communities around the world. From the bustling streets of Harlem to the vibrant neighborhoods of Soweto, her story served as a reminder of the resilience and strength of the African spirit, inspiring generations of activists and leaders to fight for justice and equality in their own communities. As the years turned into decades and the struggle for freedom and justice continued unabated, Yaa Asantewa's legacy remained as potent as ever, a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who dared to dream of a better world. And though she herself had long since passed into legend, her spirit lived on in the hearts of all who cherished the values of courage, resilience, and unwavering determination that she embodied. In the years following the attainment of independence and the global recognition of Yaa Asantewa's courageous stand against colonial oppression, her legacy continued to shape the course of history in profound and meaningful ways. As the Asante Kingdom embarked on a journey of nation-building and development, her spirit served as a guiding light, inspiring her people to build a society that honored the principles of justice, equality, and dignity for all. In the halls of government, the memory of Yaa Asantewaa remained a potent force for change, as leaders sought to uphold the values of courage and resilience that she had embodied. Her image adorned official buildings and currency, her name invoked in speeches and ceremonies, as the Asante people paid tribute to the Queen Mother who had led them through the darkest days of colonial oppression. But Yaa Asantewa's influence extended far beyond the borders of the Asante Kingdom, resonating with oppressed peoples around the world who drew inspiration from her courageous example. From Africa to the Americas, from Asia to the Pacific Islands, her story served as a powerful reminder of the universal struggle for freedom and justice, inspiring movements for liberation and social change in every corner of the globe. In the halls of academia, scholars and historians continue to study and analyze the life and legacy of Yaa Asantewaa, seeking to uncover the deeper meaning behind her remarkable story. Her name became a subject of study in classrooms and lecture halls, as students learned about her pivotal role in shaping the course of African history and the enduring impact of her actions on the world stage. In popular culture, Yaa Asantewa's story was celebrated in books, films, and music, ensuring that her memory would endure for generations to come. Her image graced the covers of magazines and newspapers, her likeness depicted in statues and paintings, as artists and writers sought to capture the essence of her courage and resilience for future generations to admire and emulate. And so, as the years turned into decades and the world continued to evolve, the legacy of Yaa Asantewaa remained as potent as ever, a testament to the power of one woman's courage to change the course of history and shape the destiny of a nation. Her spirit lived on in the hearts of all who cherished the values of justice, equality, and dignity that she had fought so valiantly to defend, ensuring that her memory would endure as a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations to come. Yaa Asantewaa's influence extended beyond her role as a leader in the fight against colonial oppression. She also left a lasting legacy in the realm of gender equality within the Asante Kingdom and beyond. As Queen Mother of Edweso, she shattered traditional gender norms and assumptions, demonstrating that women were capable of wielding significant political power and leadership. Yaa Asantewaa's rise to prominence as a leader in the Asante resistance challenged the prevailing patriarchal structures of her time. In a society where women were often relegated to subordinate roles, she defied expectations by assuming a position of authority and influence traditionally reserved for men. Her fearless leadership and unwavering commitment to the cause of Asante independence inspired women throughout the kingdom to assert themselves and demand recognition and respect for their contributions. As Queen Mother, Yaa Asantewaa wielded considerable influence in the councils of power, advising and guiding her fellow leaders with wisdom and foresight. Her ability to navigate the complexities of Asante politics and diplomacy earned her the respect and admiration of both men and women alike, cementing her status as a trailblazer for gender equality in the region. But Yaa Asantewaa's impact on gender equality extended far beyond her own lifetime. Her courageous stand against colonial oppression served as a powerful example for future generations of women leaders, inspiring them to challenge the status quo and fight for their rights and freedoms. In the decades following her death, women throughout Africa and beyond drew inspiration from her legacy as they waged their own struggles for equality and justice. Today, Yaa Asantewaa is celebrated as a pioneer in the fight for gender equality, her name invoked as a symbol of women's empowerment and leadership. Her legacy continues to inspire women around the world to defy expectations, break down barriers, and assert their rightful place in positions of power and influence. In honoring Yaa Asantewaa's memory, we pay tribute not only to her remarkable courage and resilience in the face of adversity but also to her enduring impact on the struggle for gender equality. Her legacy serves as a reminder that the fight for justice and equality knows no boundaries and that women have always played a vital role in shaping the course of history. Yaa Asantewaa's legacy extended far beyond the borders of the Asante Kingdom, profoundly influencing the development of African identity and the growth of Pan-Africanism. Her courageous stand against British colonial oppression served as a rallying cry for oppressed peoples across the African continent and inspired a sense of unity and solidarity among Africans everywhere. Yaa Asantewa's defiance against colonial rule resonated with Africans who were struggling against similar forms of oppression in their own countries. Her story became a symbol of resistance and resilience, inspiring movements for independence and self-determination throughout Africa. Leaders such as Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, and Nelson Mandela drew inspiration from her example as they fought to liberate their own nations from the shackles of colonialism and imperialism. Moreover, Yaa Asantewa's legacy played a crucial role in shaping the ideology of Pan-Africanism, which sought to unite people of African descent around the world in a common struggle against racism, colonialism, and inequality. Her courageous leadership demonstrated the power of collective action and solidarity among Africans, inspiring Pan-Africanists to work together to achieve their shared goals of freedom, justice, and equality. Yaa Asantewa's influence on African identity and Pan-Africanism extended beyond her own time, continuing to inspire generations of Africans and people of African descent around the world. Her story served as a powerful reminder of the resilience and strength of the African spirit, encouraging people to embrace their heritage and culture with pride and dignity. In honoring Yaa Asantewa's memory, Africans everywhere pay tribute to her remarkable legacy and the enduring impact of her courageous leadership. Her story serves as a testament to the power of ordinary individuals to effect change and shape the course of history, inspiring future generations to continue the fight for justice, equality, and dignity for all. As the years passed and generations came and went, Yaa Asantewa's legacy continued to transcend time, remaining a symbol of courage, resilience, and indomitable spirit for the Asante people and beyond. Her name became synonymous with the struggle for freedom and justice, revered by all who cherish the values of dignity, sovereignty, and self-determination. In the Asante Kingdom, Yaa Asantewa's memory was enshrined in the hearts and minds of her people, celebrated in annual ceremonies and festivals that honored her remarkable contributions to their history and culture. Her image adorned public monuments and memorials, her name invoked in songs and poems, as the Asante people paid tribute to the Queen Mother who had led them through the darkest days of colonial oppression. But Yaa Asantewa's influence extended far beyond the borders of her homeland, resonating with oppressed peoples around the world who drew inspiration from her courageous example. In every corner of the globe, her story served as a beacon of hope for those who dare to dream of a better future, inspiring movements for liberation and social change in every continent. In the halls of academia, scholars and historians continue to study and analyze Yaa Asantewa's life and legacy, seeking to uncover the deeper meaning behind her remarkable story. Her name became a subject of study in classrooms and lecture halls, as students learned about her pivotal role in shaping the course of African history and the enduring impact of her actions on the world stage. In popular culture, Yaa Asantewa's story was celebrated in books, films, and music, ensuring that her memory would endure for generations to come. Her likeness appeared in works of art and literature, her name invoked in speeches and songs, as artists and writers sought to capture the essence of her courage and resilience for future generations to admire and emulate. And so, As the years turned into decades and the world continued to evolve, Yaa Asantewa's legacy remained as potent as ever, a testament to the power of one woman's courage to change the course of history and shape the destiny of a nation. Her spirit lived on in the hearts of all who cherished the values of justice, equality, and dignity that she had fought so valiantly to defend, ensuring that her memory would endure as a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations to come.